Welcome to the Ashwagandha Live. It's the Ashwagandha Live show. Tomorrow will be the chamomile show, the reishi mushroom show. These are all my beverages that I have at night. But I was thinking about this interesting topic because I grew up in the 90s. I'm in my 40s, approaching my mid 40s. But in the 90s when I grew up, it seemed like it was a little bit more of a rough time. There was fights every day at school almost. And it wasn't just the boys, it was the girls as well. And some of these fights got so violent. I mean, I remember this one time. Me and my friends were eating at McDonald's. And then another group of my friends, we see them off in the distance, coming from the avenue. Off in the distance, there's a fight. We can't really tell who it is yet, but there's a fight going on. There's a truck. People are jumping in and out of the truck fighting. It was kind of bugged out. I mean, I'm looking at this fight, right? The fight moves from all the way down the avenue, ends up in a parking lot across the street in a gas station. And then shortly thereafter, the fight ends up in the Burger King, a little bit closer. And then it's approaching up towards McDonald's where we were. And the fight got so intense at one point, one of the kids that I knew threw a rock, maybe about the size of a golf ball, because it was this big guy, and he punched one of my other friends from the side when he wasn't looking and dropped him. His knees buckled and he dropped, but he got right back up and he kept saying, "Hey, that didn't hurt me. It just hurt my pride." And so his right-hand man threw a rock at the big guy's head, ricocheted off his forehead. Then you see blood streaming down the side of his face. So he's pissed. The big guy is pissed. He starts chasing them, the one that threw the rock, right? But they're going around like a parked car. He's running around the parked car, right? Just trying to, you know how you somebody can't get you because you just keep going the other way. So he was doing that. And while the big guy almost grabs him around the side, my friend that got dropped picked up a big rock the size of a softball and clocks him on the other side of the face. Now, both sides of his face are streaming down blood. I had never seen a person's face red from blood, like both sides completely red. And I'm like, damn. Wow, this is pretty crazy. This fight was going on in the McDonald's parking lot for so long. I thought it was interesting that the employees in the McDonald's were just sitting there watching it. Like, they didn't care. They were just sitting there watching. So they're arguing over what they're not fighting fair. You know, you're using rocks or whatever. This guy he should be in the hospital, right? He shouldn't be arguing whether these guys are fighting fair. I just remember he said, "You guys, you don't fight fair." And the other guy said, "Of course we don't fight fair. What do you think we're going to do? We don't do that. We don't fight fair." And meanwhile, the big guy's girlfriend is inside the truck screaming for him to get in and so they can leave. But he keeps wanting to fight, right? Eventually, they get him in the truck and they take off. But before they take off, the other kid throws another rock through the passenger side window, and it goes right through the driver's side window. Shatters everything. They take off. Now, I tell this story because these were common occurrences in the 90s. This is something that you would see. When I was a teenager, I would see these kinds of events unfolding constantly. It was something that you would see at least once or twice a month. If you were out and about, if you were in the house all day, you probably wouldn't see anything unless something ended up on your doorstep, right? But in the 90s, it was like a different day and time. I mean, it was interesting. I'm glad actually that things are gentrified right now, and it's not like that now, because even older people were getting beat up by younger people. And I know, like, they had this knockout game at one point where young people were knocking out old people. Those people deserve to go to jail, man. If you're knocking out older people, you're young, you're in your prime, and you're doing that, you deserve to go to jail. There's no question about it, dude. You're a scumbag. So, just, you know, I grew up in a rough environment, I guess, because when you go to even all these other areas in the cities and stuff, I think these places have calmed down tremendously since the 90s and the early 2Gs. I just remember seeing so many fights, so much. And the fights weren't just flesh and bone. These people would fight with baseball bats, machetes, rocks, big rocks. Like, dangerous stuff would happen. But you don't see this. These days, it's not like that anymore. And I guess my question is like, is it because people are less aggressive? Or is it because the internet has calmed people down? They're inside more on the internet? Or could it be additives in the food that are making people a little bit more docile? I don't know. Could it be a combination of all three? Maybe. I'm not the expert on why all these things happen, but if you look around, especially in major cities, you have cameras everywhere now. So people are not trying to do anything crazy on camera, because you'll end up basically snitching on yourself doing stuff in front of a camera like that. But when you see people doing crimes, like the guy who clapped that CEO of the healthcare corporation, he knew there's cameras. Those cameras can actually follow you exactly where you're going in New York City. You can't just blow somebody's top off and then get in your car and go. That they can follow you. So it's like, you're gonna get caught. If you shoot somebody in New York City, you basically want to go to jail. I was born in 1980, but you hear stories of in the 80s, it was like the Wild West, basically. So, I don't know, for me, it just seems like things are headed in the right direction with less violence, but at the same time, where has the aggression gone? Because the aggression could be channeled into something, and you can use that energy as fuel for something else. And I think a lot of the kids that I grew up with, they lacked the direction. They had talent. A lot of kids that I grew up with could have been professional boxers, baseball players. A lot of us could have been a lot of great things. If we had the right mentors, I think, you would have seen a lot of stars come out of the town that I was born in. It was just a small town, lower middle class, some of it middle class, some of it lower. But this is something that you see more in lower socioeconomic places. People are more angry, they're more frustrated. Maybe they have more money issues, so they're just more ticked off easily. When you go to, I've traveled all over, and I've traveled to different areas, more affluent neighborhoods. The people are more chill. The people are more like happy. You know, it's like one big happy family. When you go to a welfare place or a Section 8 place, they're fighting, they're cussing, they're fighting over crumbs, small amounts of money. They're always angry, stressed. There's no professionalism to them. And I'm not saying everybody, but I'm saying in general. That's why the whole goal is to move out of that situation. You see the rappers that grew up in environments like that. They don't stay there. The whole goal is to get up out of there. get a house somewhere in the hills. A lot of them from that grew up in the inner cities of New York City ended up getting houses in Connecticut and in the rich part of Connecticut, because don't get it twisted, Connecticut has some slums, but they'll go all over. They'll go to more of the upper class part of New York. They'll move to Cali. They'll move to all parts of the country or even the world to get up out of the situation that they were brought up in, because they know it's a trap. They know they're going to get it's only a matter of time before they get their day. Every dog has its day, right? So it's just something different, man. I know I pretty much grew up in Connecticut my whole life. I traveled to other states, but I think it was like that in the 90s everywhere. I don't think it was just my middle school that was fights every day. I think it was every middle school and high school during that time. And I'm not me personally, I'm not somebody that just likes to fight. I mean, I like boxing, and I took a liking to boxing, probably because there were so many fights as a kid growing up. But I just remember thinking I would end up in fights and I didn't even want to fight. That's how many fights there would be. And sometimes kids would instigate it to try to get you into a fight. I remember being in, I think it was 8th grade, 7th or 8th grade. And one of the kids said to this kid sitting next to me, he said, "Hey, Kevin," my name, Kevin, said, "Kevin said your mom's fat." Right? And the kid said, "Oh yeah? You said that, Kevin?" And I'm sitting in front of him, right? So I can't see. He winds up and just slaps me in the side of the ear. And when you get slapped real hard in the side of the ear, all you hear is ringing. You can't hear the teacher talking or nothing. So he did it when the teacher was writing something on the board. So she didn't see what happened. But all I hear is, and the teacher's like talking. All I can see is her lips moving. I can't hear what she's saying, right? And I'm like, all right, let me stay calm, because I'm going to get mine. He's not going to get away with that. And I look, he sits down, he's like, yeah, that's right. Like, he thinks he's tough, right? And then I had my social studies book, one of those thick books. And I'm like waiting for the teacher to turn around again. As soon as the teacher turned around, I threw the book. And it smacked him right in the mouth, the book. And then we get up and we start tussling, right? And then the teacher says, "Get out, go to the office." So we end up going to the office and just, all right, next class. You want to squash the beef? Yeah, let's squash it. I mean, that's just stuff that would happen like that. It would just, yeah, we get into a fight the next minute. We're like, yeah, it's all good. And I don't think kids these days do that. Like, I fought probably every single one of my friends at least once. Like, even like people would just come to your house when you meet somebody for the first time. You would fight. That's what you would do to get to know somebody. Crazy, right? I remember when we went to visit my cousin in New York. We went to New York, right? All of us. And we all had to box each other. Like, that's just what we did back then. It was more aggressive. Kids don't do that nowadays. They compete in different ways. They compete on the video games. They compete through social media. Now it's cyberbullying. When I was growing up, it was actually real bullying. Kids smacking you in the back of the head, kicking you down the stairs. That's real bullying. What is this cyberbullying things? Like, you can't be, that can't hurt you. Like, I remember The older people used to say sticks and stones can break your bones, but names can't hurt you. I mean, come on. When somebody says something online that is crazy, real disrespectful or whatever, it's almost like you can't really, like, part of you is like, it's annoyed, or, you know, you might get a little bit of a reaction out of it, a visceral reaction, but at the end of the day, you can't really get mad at the person. Like, it's almost like that person is in so much pain that they have to display it in the comment section on your video or your post or whatever. And it's like they want to inflict a little bit of their pain on you. They want to transfer it to you because they're feeling so miserable in their own life that they want to give you a little piece of their own mind. And, you know, I don't mind some negative comments, because some negative comments have some truth to it. So it's not all like, I'm not the type of person to just block somebody that says something that I deem disrespectful in the time. If there's a grain of truth to it, I always appreciate anything. But some people are just stupid and belligerent. But I mean, that's the extent of it nowadays. So you don't have to worry about getting hurt. Maybe your feelings can get hurt. You can feel triggered. But I mean, where's the emotional resilience? And I think when you grew up in the 90s, you have a different perspective, because you have a physical resilience, but you also matured to the point where you do have some emotional resilience. If you made it through without being institutionalized or you know, going into penitentiaries and mingling with other criminals that are mentally tapped in the head, then you really haven't had a chance to grow up. I've grew up with a lot of kids that, you know, spent most of their life in jail. I remember hanging out with kids that, you know, literally would go to jail, come home for a summer or maybe the winter, and then, you know, 3, 4, 5 months, they'd be back in jail. And it was a cycle that would just continue, in and out of jail. And every time they went to jail, they would have to go for a longer time. You know, that's somebody that just never figured out how to do things in life, never figured out how to navigate life, always ended up back in the corner, stuck in some cell. It's kind of sad, man, because when you think about a lot of the kids that were in trouble, they had a lot of potential. They had a tremendous amount of potential. Some of them could have been professional fighters, professional boxers, or baseball players. Some of them could have been like really good. They had passions, and maybe they were obsessed with cars, like Mustangs or something. Maybe you could have done something with that. Like, there's always something that I think about that they could have done, a different avenue they could have took, and been successful instead of been a degenerate in and out of jail their whole life. You know, so this is just my personal experience with me as a youth and growing up, and I just had the question of why is it that people are so tame? Could be a number of reasons, right? But ultimately it's a good thing, and I'm glad society's more safe. But there's always pros and cons, right? So aggression is not all bad. I think aggression is a necessary emotion when it comes to achieving your goals. But just know how to harness it, because it could be very dangerous. You could waste a lot of your life if you don't know how to harness your emotions. So being emotional can ruin your life. But when you have emotional resilience, it's almost like a superpower. So I think that's it for ashwagandha time. I finished my tea when I recorded my video a little bit earlier, and the audio wasn't on. So hopefully the audio's on for this one, and you guys have a wonderful night.